as you grow, you need I'm stating the obvious, but you need a process, and you need people that can define the process, and you need people that manage the process.
Welcome to UpTech Report. This is our Founders Journey series. UpTech Report is sponsored by Terraleap. Learn how to leverage the power of video at terraleap.io. I'm excited here to be joined by my guest, Gil Friedrich. This is actually part 2. You can go back and listen to part 1 where we heard more about their platform. He's the co-founder and CEO of Avanan. He's based in New York, and they're a cybersecurity SaaS company, started in 2014, all around cloud and email and collaboration security. Welcome back, Gil. Good to have you on.
Excellent. Happy to regroup.
So now here, I want to hear about the journey, like already even before Avanan, like how did you first get into cybersecurity tech? Was it just like immediately beginning in cybersecurity, or were you just fascinated with technology at the beginning?
It was so coincident that I'm almost embarrassed to mention this. I did my university degree, and I did that right after my military service in the Israeli military, where salary wasn't great. So after about 6 months of basically just working on my thesis, I was out of money. Completely different field. It was sort of AI, but in the area of image processing and face recognition. And I told my professor, I'm running out of money. Do you mind if I start a job? Because I finished my research. I just needed to write my thesis. And he said, "That's funny you say that. I'm about to start a company. Do you want to join?" And I knew nothing. And he told me the idea, etc. And I knew so little that I said, whatever, I'll join. I'll see you every day, and that will make sure I write my thesis. And so I joined. I wrote my thesis. I submitted my thesis, and then I also got into a cybersecurity company that ended up going public in NASDAQ. And I saw the potential. I enjoyed the success.
So almost happenstance, being able to say, "Hey, I need a job," and I look, and he says, I'm going to start a company. Come join me. And that was the first cybersecurity company you were part of.
And the first job I ever had. So
first job.
Well, the first professional job.
Right. And that was called?
That was Forescout.
That was Forescout, and that was 14 years that you were focused on. Did I get it right? I'm looking at LinkedIn here.
Yes, absolutely. So I started there at the end of 2000, and I 3.5 years later, I was appointed as the VP of R&D. So basically, I ran the R&D team there until about 11. Still with Forescout, moved from Tel Aviv to New York. More focused on, more like an outbound VP of technology. That was the title, but working with customers, with partners, and so on.
That shift from working on the product itself to now external, working with customers. There's a lot of folks out there that start from the tech side, but move to outward facing in sales. What was some of the lessons learned that you had in that growth and now working externally with customers?
I think lesson number 1 was short answers. I mean, I just remember my first presentations were always, I can think of the slides I would make and the number of words I had to use in order to express a simple idea. I think I really got better there, and how to explain maybe complex technical terms in simpler words. These are the areas where I felt like I needed to be better, and I became gradually better over time. I have to tell you that personally, I love R&D work. I love the development. I mean, even at Avanan, I haven't done it for a few years. Year number 1, we got together. I was coding with my 2 other co-founders, just sitting in a room coding, and I loved every moment. When we started hiring people, they looked at our code and they just, it was horrible. So they ditched it and started over.
Oh, wow.
But I still enjoy that piece very much. And having the flexibility, I guess, to also be able to start there with your version 1, just gave us a lot of to start, it gave us a lot of flexibility because, we didn't need to hire people. We had co-founders, hardly any salary, so from a journey perspective, we came after a year with something relatively mature where we could start, beta customers, etc., without waiting to hire people, etc.
Now, you had mentioned already in the first episode where you saw this challenge when you were at Forescout, and you were like, all right, we got to start something. So I'm just curious, can you walk me through like the phases from 2011 to 2014 to then starting in 2014 with Avanan? What did it look like to begin the company with your co-founders?
So I guess the challenging part that it was a super fascinating time at Forescout as well, because during those 3 years, pretty much every one of the major banks in the world became a customer. Mm-hmm. And, as you can imagine, quite a few are headquartered in or around New York City, or, the vicinity. So I was very fortunate to just be part of that. I wasn't in sales. I didn't have a very significant role in the process, but they would still call me into demos, and I was involved in a lot of the customer conversations. So it just gave me a lot of access, to just start to compile all the information I was getting. And so when you hear something for the first time, a need that is underserved, you shelf it somewhere in your brain, and then you hear it from the second time, it comes back to the front of your brain. And when you hear it for the third time, now you say, okay, now I need to actively, check this notion. And so the next one, you're actually asking the customer, is that the concern? Is this a problem you have, etc. And as you collect those data points, that you're up to something. And I think, most of the people, they solve a problem they have or they see. I think the guy that invented the wheel wasn't about, fishing. He probably had to carry some big stones, to the top of the mountain, whatever. So I think in that respect, we were so involved in those customer conversations that, we could test the notion, test the idea before we started. And that was very important before we were able to start a new company.
You have three other co-founders?
Correct.
And did you guys just talk amongst yourselves? Like, how did it form between the other co-founders that they became your co-founders to start Avanan?
So we worked really well at Forescout, and we knew each other for many, many years. And it wasn't just that we worked together. We enjoyed working together, and we just felt great chemistry. So it was very, very natural. It was almost, the joke we had is bringing the band together. 2 out of the 4 were no longer Forescout employees. So already left in 2009, 2008, but we called them back. And so part of it was that just great chemistry, and I think also bringing diverse skill sets. So one came really from the sales and marketing side, and the other was pure R&D, and one was product. So just
as a balance
exactly.
of all the skill sets in a 4-person crew.
Exactly, and so it meant that for senior position, and all had VP positions at Forescout. So from that respect, we didn't need to hire a ton of people in order to kickstart a company. We had the basic skill set to start, and then we started to hire people that can tell us what we need to do.
At the beginning, did you raise money right from there? Did you bootstrap? How did you approach that?
So for a few months, it's your garage story, even though it wasn't in the garage, but at night, finishing the day job and try to work on some sort of a proof of concept or mock-up. And I think it was very important in our investor discussions, because it's one thing to come with slides, it's another to say, hey, let me show you a demo. So I think it really helped us to come with a demo. And we also had not customers necessarily, but reference people that would say, I need this, I have this problem. So access to customers was also very important. In our life, we raised the seed round, then we had an A round, and then we had a B round. This is where we're at right now.
Gotcha.
So the seed was very easy, in all honesty. I mean, it's never easy to get money, but just high level, we were a team with the right story, with the right background. So we started to get term sheets relatively fast. Round A was very hard.
Mm-hmm. Why was it so hard?
Because so we were asking for, I guess, a lot of money for a high valuation before we had a single paying customer. So there was a misalignment there, and we still tried for, I want to say, maybe 6 months to go with that. After 6 months, we had 3 paying customers, with 6 more, in the pipeline about to sign. One of those 6 is a Fortune 500. So at that point, the entire conversation with VCs changed, where it was no longer about this guy is going to invest. I already felt that the feedback was different. So I already felt that, if it's not this one, it's the next one. If not the next one, because the gap was really being able to show money flowing in. So being really able to show that, people are taking their checkbooks out, paying for this, etc.
That's interesting, Miles. Like, if you're having trouble raising your round on your set terms, one would think, well, just change it so that a lower valuation or ask for less money. But your approach is, no, let's just keep going and get more customers to show that we are actually at that valuation.
Absolutely. And since then, we always took the approach of, when you take a round, you immediately spend more, but spend in a way that towards the next time you'll need money, you'll be very close to, break even.
Mm-hmm.
And it just gives you a ton of flexibility because, you go through investors and time is on your side because you're growing. Fine, don't invest now. You're always talking to investors, always. And even now, when I don't know if we'll take another round or not, where we'll be, the conversation is, fine, we're growing so quickly. So, you don't want to pay this valuation now, you'll pay double in a year. So really, that I think that's important. And I learned that after our A round. Our B round was, again, easy in the sense that, we got new term sheets from new VCs, and then our existing VCs just said, you know what, we are taking the round. They have the right of first refusal. They just took the round. They were so bullish about the company. And
So Avanan, how did you come up with the name?
It's the wife of my co-founder, and she's in Hebrew, Avanan, Av basically mean cloud, and Anan mean cloud. And when you think about what we initially did, it's almost like your cloud of cloud, and it just came together nice as cloud of cloud. Or sometimes it's thought of as thick cloud in Hebrew, so like hardening the cloud, making sure it's safe.
So from here, you begin, but you have the funding. A round or seed round was okay. A round was difficult, but you got it. You start to get customers. To get those first initial customers, what were some lessons learned there that you can share?
It's probably the hardest part in the life of the company, to be honest. Even now with 4,000 customers and growth pains we've experienced, our biggest growth pain was probably between 200 customers to 500 customers.
Why is that the biggest growth pain, you think?
Just, historically, I'm not sure if it's general. For us, that was the time where we had to change the methods of, how we operate, how we handle customers, etc. But even with that, I think getting the first customers is the toughest because, in the enterprise and something like email that is so sensitive, no one wants to be an early adapter. Vetting you out, etc., is not easy. we already had customers that bought solutions that we developed, so they knew how we think, they knew how we, that was useful. And if you don't have that, then I think you need to hire someone that does, because in the beginning you almost ask them for a favor. There's no other way to say this.
So it's part of it's just patience, and just asking someone, hey, will you do me a favor? Let's get started. Let's try it. And you meet them where they are, and then you can grow. You're able to expand and scale from there.
Exactly.
For you to be able to manage this, and you said scaling from 200 to 500 customers and stuff, obviously that changes the dynamics, and part of it takes the right team. What would you say are some lessons learned for building the right team?
So I think one thing I learned is that, as you grow, you need I'm stating the obvious, but you need a process, and you need people that can define the process, and you need people that manage the process, that do the day-to-day of the process.
Mm.
And there's a gap there that I've seen everywhere, whether it's marketing or sales or R&D or whatever, that you hire someone that ran a process in another company, right? A similar process, whatever, customer success, support, whatever. And they can describe that process to you, but very often they're not the people that define the process in that organization. And your organization is different. So the people that define the process and the people that run the process are not necessarily the same person. Mm. And when you hire, as you scale, you're thinking, okay, let me hire someone that had the past experience, running a support organization. Well, your organization is different, and whatever they did before doesn't necessarily match. So really, you need the people that can help you define that process, understand the problem, define the process, not necessarily run it. So I think that's a challenge, and we made that mistake several times in several areas.
That's a powerful lesson learned of not knowing that there's two different people, one that can be great at running process, those who are creating a new process, and just taking an existing process from a different company and applying it to their new job at your company is not necessarily a good idea. And so it's, how do you determine, when you're interviewing someone, whether they fit into one category or the other?
So you need to drill down into what they were running, where they were, what was working, what was not working, why they did what we did. You sort of try to see if they have that bigger picture, bigger perspective. Mm-hmm. And also, you sometimes, what we ended up doing that worked really well is taking people not necessarily from the same discipline. So, for example, the person that eventually got us a customer success process that works and a support process that really, really works, never had any job in support or customer success.
Seriously?
He ran a huge R&D team that worked really, really well. So he understood process, in the bits and bytes, very detailed oriented, was able to define that process. And now he came to this new problem, and he was able to, build a process that works. So it's not necessarily the prior experience. It's more that ability to understand the bigger picture.
The problem-solving skills of seeing a situation and coming up with a solution for it that fits just perfectly for that.
Exactly.
For you as a leader, are there any books, audiobooks, podcasts that you've read in the past that you would recommend to others?
So I'll tell you what, I almost want to say that take everything with a grain of salt, and I'll tell you why. Because I read a book when I knew nothing about sales and marketing, right? And I'm very grateful to our CRO that wasn't a co-founder, but he's a founding member, also a friend from Forscott, what we took over when sales started. Because everything I learned from him in sales and marketing. And initially, he recommended a book to me about inbound and inbound marketing, and I think it's really good as an initial book, and I think it's called Inbound. But then I read a sarcastic book about the company and the person that wrote that book that said, it's all, it's probably not the whole truth. Let's put it this way. There's a lot of truth in it, but there's probably more. And it's all about that balance between, you want inbound, right? You want people to come from you, beg for your solution, and just buy it with no problem. But that doesn't exist anymore, because for every problem, there's 50 companies that can solve it. And you have to go outbound. So the notion of just write your blogs and people will come doesn't work. And to find that balance, understand that balance, understand what works for you. I guess if you read that book Inbound, to the letter, you'll probably fail, because it's not the reality. So anyway, that helped me. I think there's a book called Outliers that probably many people read, and I read as well. And I think it gives a lot of perspective in different stage of the business, and the time you need to spend into the problem, the perseverance, and even the feeling of entitlement. Like, there's another thing I would say helps small startups, that maybe is a lesson learned. Try to appear bigger than you are, right? You cannot say, hey, we're 4 guys on a laptop. You can't. So there are different ways to do this, and it's about who you partner with. Like, you can generally partner and have a press release with a big company if you're able to, give them something they need. And they need the innovation, so they would look for someone like you as well. So, but being able to do those things, and at the end of the day appear bigger than you really are.
Really helps.
Something about that book talks about, entitlement, not in a negative way, but just in a feeling of, I generally feel like I'm coming to the world in a humble way. Nonetheless, there's something about, listen, guys, no one knows about this problem better than I do. And I can help you understand this problem in again, not to come arrogant, but
almost confidence in your product and what you can provide.
Exactly. Wow. That's the thing.
I appreciate these real world experiences are way better than any books that you can read that you're just mentioning. Like, it was being able to partner with a large brand that you said that that can help raise them because it's innovative. Is that what you did at the beginning? Did you do that? Something similar?
Yes, we had partnerships very early where some of our larger customers were brought to us through our partnership with, some of the biggest companies, biggest names in IT security. Then they also saw the success, and so they also OEM'd our solution for a period of time. So we had OEMs with some of the largest companies out there. Eventually, when we were able to hunt our own customers, it no longer made sense to OEM business-wise. But even if you just go to someone like Gartner, and they'll figure it out even if you don't tell them that, hey, this company OEMs you, now you're no longer this tiny little startup. Now you have an OEM with this conglomerate, so you're probably doing something right.
So doing an OEM with a larger partner actually is a potentially good way to start to get that attention, get out there.
Get credibility for sure. Yeah.
Get credibility. Wow. That's a great one. To close here, any tech predictions would you make of looking forward the next year or two or 5-10 years from now in the cybersecurity world? Any predictions?
That's a tough one. I mean, obviously, I think there's no turning back from some of the things that happened with COVID, and in many ways, it's just accelerated probably things that would have happened anyway. Digitization of everything. My daughter's going to school using an iPad, and my working from remote, and all that, the way we buy, the way we sell, all that is here for good, I'm sure. I think it will. I think it will change how company thinks about employees. Obviously, I mean, we used to prefer certain geographies. Now we don't care. We hire everywhere, anywhere. it's a great thing because it opened us just to a ton more talent, and hiring people is the toughest part for every business, in tech for sure, maybe in other fields as well. So I think that's a huge positive, not to care about geography. The concern I always have there is does, will we see less connection to the company, right? Will it start feeling like everyone's outsourcing the work? So
the balance that will have to come from that.
So I think, probably more employee churn in some respect, or at least companies trying to find new ways to connect the employee to their brand, etc. When there's no headquarters. It's not a huge prediction. It's maybe just the challenges we have now, but these are the kind of things that keep us busy as we think about enterprise and business into the next few years.
I think you make very accurate statements of the future is predicated on the challenges we're facing right now and where they will lead us. But if anything, it will be a more tech-enabled, digitized world and distributed, where cybersecurity attacks can happen anywhere in new places, which is great to have a solution like yours. Thank you so much for the time that you've been able to share, Gil, on the insights from your journey. For those that want to learn more about the actual product, go back and listen to part 1 of our discussion, where you could hear how we dove into the platform of Avanan. And you could also head over to avanan.com and be able to learn more about the product there. Thanks again, Gil, for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks, Alex.
We'll see you guys on the next episode of UpTech Report.
Have you seen a company using AI, machine learning, or other technology to transform the way we live, work, and do business? Go to uptechreport.com and let us know.